102.7 WMOM 837. It is a Thursday morning, January 5th. In the studio with us, Erin Doan from State Farm Insurance. Erin, thanks for coming in as always. We appreciate you.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Appreciate you too, man.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
And Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year, man. Here we go, 2023.
This is exciting. And over the next few minutes, we want to dive into some of those topics that will get people started here in the new year, including any sort of insurance changes. We're going to talk about things that, people are starting to think more and more. We had a story just a few minutes ago in the news that Sony and Honda is coming out with an electric vehicle in the next year. People are considering more electric vehicles. I want to dive into what does the insurance side of that look like here in the next few minutes too. And it's very early in the phase. You don't see a lot of people coming through your door that have purchased an electric vehicle at this point, right?
Yeah, I think, out of, almost 3,000 cars insured in our agency, I think we are probably at a half a dozen.
Okay.
So but I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see significantly more because there's more for sale. There's going to be less gas powered. I think for next 10, 20, 30 years, we're still going to see gas powered, but at the same time, there's going to be a higher percentage of electric as we go, even in our community.
All right. We're going to be talking about that. One other topic during the segment today, among a few others, is health insurance. And we see that at the end of 1 year, that health insurance changes, that employer-based health insurance changes, and a lot of times the employees don't know until after it's changed, right? Yeah,
there becomes a time where employers will bid out their group health insurance, and that's usually in the fall. So normally before November 1st, they have those choices on most employers what they're going to do, and that's based on these big group health insurance companies bidding out the work. They literally do that, and then they provide the employer with the best options. Typically the president of the company, and his executive team or her executive team are going to look and see what's the best plan for our employees at the best price.
All right, we're going to be talking about that too. Let's dive into, if we don't mind starting here, is when insurance lapses, for years and years and years, and tell me if this was a myth or is it reality. If insurance lapses, let's take your car insurance as an example. We see that inflation is here, higher prices. We talk about egg prices, we talk about milk, gas, everything else in regards to the prices out there, and people are struggling. We know that.
Yeah.
If insurance, if they don't renew their insurance or keep their insurance going, and there's that gap that happens, what does that look like when it comes to penalties, the cost of that next insurance, renewing? Can you take us through that?
Yeah, that process is actually very common, and so let me just kind of give a little bit of brief history. I'm a 20-year agent for State Farm, and our bread and butter is auto insurance, even though we do about 100 different products and services. But what happens is if you get behind in your auto insurance and it gets to the point where it lapses for 30 days or more, we're back to now you have to look at going into the high-risk pool or look at a high-risk insurer. So there are certain insurance companies right now that will accept a more higher risk. And why do they call it higher risk? My coverage just lapsed for a while, and I get it was more than 30 days. Well, what they're looking at is most people would drive uninsured, right? Just because they've got to get to work, they've got to get the kids, they've got to still maintain their life. And unfortunately, they don't want to, but they will still drive uninsured. And so right now in Michigan, even with our new no-fault reform law, which brought the medical cost of your auto insurance down in 2020, it's still expensive, in terms of paying for this insurance. So here's what happens. At that point, once it is beyond 30 days, we need to look at the high-risk pool, which we in the insurance industry call JUA, and we're quoting that, and that company, it's held in a different division with different profitability when we're looking at that, and costs and risks. And typically the reason it is more expensive, which it can be double. So we oftentimes ask people, is there any other money anywhere else you can borrow from? Do you have any other savings? Is there anybody you can borrow from just to get your insurance paid? We don't want you to not eat or have the gas turned on in your home, or lose your home. But if insurance can be right up there after food, for sure, we want to make sure people stay insured, because a lot of times that high risk insurance is about double of what a regular insurance policy can be, literally overnight. And sometimes then people go uninsured for a longer period of time until they can get that down payment, which is typically 50%. So let's say high risk is $1,000 every 6 months. They're literally having to come up with a $500 down payment right now.
Based on what you just said, so 30 days, you want to make sure that you keep that insurance paid up. But it is kind of a punch in the stomach too if somebody lapses and then they're paying double, right?
They are. Yeah, I think it's a way that unfortunately the downside, the negativity of where our industry gets into is it's really a penalty. It's almost like hate to say it this way, but taking you to the woodshed, which is old terms for like you're in trouble. Like, hey, don't do this. And so it's the state's way, and in the states all across the country. This is not just a Michigan thing. Is that they want you to keep insurance on the vehicle, and I think the challenge can be in this budgeting and this environment is sometimes we have 3, 4, 5 vehicles, and I don't get me wrong, we want to keep them insured, but we also want you to have the budget and finances that you can afford. We do have people suspend and turn off coverages for the winter so they can afford the vehicles and keep those insured throughout the winter. And maybe there's a couple vehicles that they can what we call suspend or put into storage. Please consider that before your policy lapses. It's just so important. And trying not to get that, like you said, punch in the gut before, that has to happen.
Let me ask you this question before you. On an average week or month, do you see quite a few people come in with lapsed insurance?
Yeah. It's I would say that we have, and I would say this is pretty consistent with all agencies in the listening area, is that we have 20 to 30% of our households that are paycheck to paycheck and actually behind in their insurance payments. So we have initiatives, and we have actually team member that's really their full-time job is, hey, when can you pay? How much can you pay? How can we help you not lapse? So my agency at State Farm in Ludington, we're making that constant effort to try to keep people insured, in addition to what the company legally has to send out for cancellation notices. And they do send them out. They are, going to be very regular, very timely. You have 30 days before, once you're in a non-payment status, you got that time to come up with the money before your policy cancels. So the insurance company is trying to not give you that punch in the gut the best they can. But I get it. We get it, Chris. There's a lot of people really struggling financially right now with the inflation. And so this is one way that we can, we want to let them be informed, but also help them kind of make some good budgeting decisions with other premium and insurance that they're paying elsewhere, just to try to help them have the best premium discounts possible and get insured what you absolutely need to have insured to get through this inflationary cycle.
One more question in regards to this topic. This part of this topic is, what if somebody is with a different insurance company? They've lapsed at this point. They don't have any insurance, and they walk through the door. What's those first steps that you're going to take with them?
It's asking them good questions, trying to understand a little bit more about the customer's recent history. What's happened? Is there not trying to get into their personal affairs, but at the same time, we need to kind of know what were the circumstances that got them to that point. And sometimes there's situations where a car completely broke down. It literally is unfunctionable. They have receipts showing that, and they commit to saying, we have not driven. And so I have not driven uninsured. And here's how we can prove that. So that helps a lot. With that kind of documentation, the underwriters or the people at the back office will be able to look at that information and go, okay, yep, these people really had this situation occur. They can still have regular insurance and not have to go to the high-risk pool.
All right. Let's stay on automobiles for a moment here. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Erin Doan from State Farm Insurance. And we talked a little bit about lapse of insurance. And if you missed any of this, don't fear. WMOM's video is archived right there on our Facebook page. But let's take the electric vehicle phase now. Erin, we're talking about this. We talked a little bit about Sony and Honda teaming up together. They're launching an EV. We've heard, Ford and Chevy, and obviously Tesla's the big one out there. Are people walking through the door yet in a regular fashion and talking about electric vehicles?
I would say, in general, Chris, the answer to that is yes. And I would say it's going to be more urban areas, in terms of the bigger cities, is we're finding that to be more and more common. In our community, in the rural market, not as much. We do have them. They are happening more often, more frequently, and so we're making sure we're getting more and more versed on, any differences with the insurance on an electric vehicle for sure.
And with that said, we hear some of those rumors. Battery replacement is expensive, any sort of repairs and such. What is that education process? What are you looking at so that when you can have that conversation with somebody that's considering an EV, that all the cards are out there and making the best judgment there?
Well, I think it's like a lot of things. It's the conversation. What we're encouraging and have for years at my agency is, hey, give us a quick call on vehicles you're comparing. Give us a call to get a quote. So because year, make, model, even close late model years can be difference in premium. So when what you're doing is you're just adding in that correlation, that aspect of, hey, what is the EV cost comparatively to a gas powered, and you're making an overall budgeting decision on insurance premium, electric versus gas, and then trying to make a call what makes sense to you and your family.
And we've talked about this before, but when it comes to, let's say, an accident or something happens, that insurance, it truly is factored in on what is going to be the cost to replace that item, right?
Yeah, and right now the batteries in electric vehicles, if you didn't know, here's the number. It's about $5,000 to $15,000 for that battery, and unfortunately, depending on the location of that manufacturer where they put the battery in the electric vehicle, if it's in a place where it can get damaged in a lot of even relatively small accidents, you have to replace the integrity of the battery. If the battery gets injured, if you will, or damaged in a way that it can't be used properly, you're going to have to replace that. That is a function that the insurance companies across the world are plugging into their premiums. And like late model cars, like we talked about off air, Chris, is that the newer cars have a lot more cameras, they have a lot more airbags, they have a lot more safety features. Correction from going off lane control, in terms of even the feature of where automatic dimming, right, for your brights. All those they're super cool, but they all cost money. And right now, the cost of car insurance is increasing because of the cost of those items.
Is there a correction that eventually will happen? Is this? I mean, we've had insurance for a long time out there, right?
Right.
Do corrections happen in insurance and those in cost there?
I think one of the biggest ones can be safety, and actually, how does insurance work? Well, it's the cost of claims is the biggest function of what drives premium. That is the cost, and so if these models and electric vehicles have less accidents, right? There's less what we call frequency, which is number of claims, the severity. They're not as in a big as accident as others. I think about even the adaptive cruise control. It keeps you back off a couple, 200-300 feet, which sometimes can be annoying. But, putting the blinker on, going in the left lane, getting around that person, going back to the speed that you are comfortable with, and getting back into the lane, that keeps you away from that vehicle in front of you. And so, there's times where, again, that distance is going to help you be safer, which then leads to less accidents, which leads to less claims and premium being, that you have to pay. So I think that's where the correction we're going to see over time is less accidents.
All right. We're talking with Erin Doan from State Farm Insurance this morning. Let's change gears for just a moment. We had this conversation come up with a listener just the other day. Their company just changed their health insurance just without notice and said, "Hey, we have a new health insurance." That happens. That happens not necessarily regularly, but it happens out there, right?
Yeah, I would say it's becoming perhaps even more increasingly common, just because of, again, expenses and costs. Health insurance is it's kind of funny. You take all these insurances and you peel them back. It's the expenses in the medical fields and the prescriptions, the procedures, and the equipment to do those procedures. Those are becoming even significantly more high tech. So with those advancements that we're seeing, those costs get passed to, if you will, your health insurance. So what employers are doing is they're making comparisons. And right now with inflation, just like you are doing your household budget, they're doing their own budgeting for the company. And if you can think of it this way, they're trying to keep their expenses and costs down to make sure their prices are good with their people that buy from them, and also to keep you employed. So what they're trying to do the best they can, most employers, is trying to give you the most benefits that they can afford to pay in conjunction with some of the premium that you pay for your health insurance. So they have the full right, jurisdiction to change insurance companies and literally just inform you that they've done that. So that is a very common thing, and it happens quite a bit between different group health insurance companies.
Do you see that we're at a point where the health insurance is going to be too priced out in regards to employer-based health insurance for these businesses to carry, and this doesn't become a benefit of employment? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and it is an interesting element. I think I can tell you that the private sector, as a small business owner that I am, owning my own agency, I feel blessed to be able to provide group health insurance to my staff. Mm-hmm. There is an expense to that, and I'm paying, when I look at my budgeting from year to year, what I can afford to help them pay the premium on their behalf and keep good employees. And it's a retention factor. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot of people that go, does this person have group health insurance? Do they provide, what's their paid time off look like? What's their retirement benefits? They're going to look at all these factors in deciding who they're going to hire. So a lot of even small business owners are really struggling with this. And I'll tell you that in our community, most small business owners do struggle with being able to afford and pay for group health insurance. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them are really trying to carve that into the budget, if at all possible.
We're talking with Erin Doan from Erin Doan State Farm Insurance. One more question in regards to that before we wrap up this morning. Is there ever the scenario where when a group, sorry about Hudson's there as people pass by, but is there ever the situation where we have to go personal with our health insurance if our employer changes our health insurance at all?
Yeah, it's a great question, and yes, and so there are options. You can buy individual health insurance, and for your family or for you individually, outside of what you can, if the employer offers it, you can go outside of it. And so what you're looking at is what's the premium there versus what the group health insurance premium, your co-share of premium is. So let's say that your family health insurance is $1,000 a month and your employer pays $700 or $600. You've got that difference. So when you're shopping for your own individual family health insurance, you can compare what can I get and the benefits, what's the deductible, and make that comparison. There's also the Affordable Care Act, which you can look at that as well, and there can be some subsidies there that you can get money that the government will help you pay the premium. You just need to make sure that stays in force, and there are definitely penalties for not qualifying or making sure you're still qualified to maintain that Affordable Care Act health insurance.
All right. Lots of topics that we want to hit on in 2023. Mm-hmm. I think this is a good start to keep people, I know we hit on quite a few here, but let's dive into a lot more of these topics as we continue throughout the year. And really, we want to be able to address those questions that the listeners have, too. And so if you have a question, you can always reach out to us. But insurance from from everybody outside of insurance, Erin, you know it can be very confusing and complicated and so on and so forth. But really, the team at Erin Doan State Farm Insurance, you can clarify a lot of that for us.
Yeah, and we actually at State Farm, in my agency, we spend a lot of time on what we call simple conversations.
Okay.
And really what that is intended to do is just ask simple questions, understand more about what you're concerned about, your risks, so that you understand your risks of everyday life. And then just doing our best to know and make it understandable. Each one of my 5 staff really work hard to help you understand what your options are, keep the premium as low as we can, but make sure you're covered in a catastrophe in every area of life.
All right, sounds good. We appreciate you. It's a lot to dive into, a lot of information we talked about today, but we want you to be informed, educated about this, and you can always listen to and watch this segment on our Facebook page at WMOM. And more importantly, reach out to Erin Doan and Erin Doan State Farm Insurance and their team, because I would assume, Erin, your team is ready to answer some of these questions.
We're ready to roll. It's a new year. We're all pumped up. We had our team meeting for the year last week, and we're ready to help you. Love to hear from you. If you're a current customer or even considering making sure your coverage is in the best order, please give us a call.
All right, and how can they reach you?
You can reach us at 231-757-3115, or check us out on the web, LuddingtonInsurance.com. LuddingtonInsurance.com.
All right, sounds good. Erin, thanks so much
Thanks,
for coming.
Chris.
You got it. It is 8:58 on 102.7 WMOM.
Lakeshore Weather.
A quick check of your Lakeshore weather forecast for today as we wrap up and get you ready for the